Oskar Schindler was a German businessman born into a middle-class family, a man who enjoyed life, wealth, and success. At first glance, he didn't seem like someone who would become a hero. In fact, when World War II broke out, Schindler saw an opportunity to make money. He joined the Nazi Party, not because he shared their ideology, but because it gave him connections. In 1939, after Germany invaded Poland, Schindler moved to Krakow, a city now under Nazi control, where he opened a factory to produce enamelware. His workers were Jewish because they were cheaper and readily available as a result of the Nazi occupation. Schindler's only focus was profit, and his factory became quite successful. But what started as a business venture would soon turn into something far more significant. In the early years of the war, Schindler observed the growing mistreatment of Jews by the Nazi regime. The horrors were hard to miss. Jewish families were being forced into overcrowded ghettos, and the Nazi soldiers treated them with cruelty and brutality. But the true turning point for Schindler came when he witnessed the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto in 1943. From his office window, Schindler saw Jewish families being brutally torn from their homes, with soldiers shouting orders and herding them into trucks. The streets were filled with cries of fear and anguish as men, women, and children were dragged away, their fates uncertain. This scene shook Schindler to his core. The people he had once seen as merely workers were now victims of unspeakable violence. It was in that moment he realized he had to act. Schindler made a life-changing decision that day. He knew he couldn't stand by and watch as innocent people were sent to their deaths. He began using his wealth and influence to protect the Jewish workers in his factory, but saving them wouldn't be easy. The Nazis were relentless, and every Jewish life was in danger. Schindler came up with a plan. He would create a secret list of Jewish workers, presenting them as essential to his factory's operations. This list was not just a list of workers. It was a lifeline, a way to protect these people from the concentration camps. But it wasn't enough just to add names. Schindler had to bribe Nazi officials constantly to keep his workers safe. Each bribe was a risk, and each day was a battle to save more lives. Life inside Schindler's factory became a haven. While the world outside was filled with fear and death, inside the factory walls, the Jewish workers found a small measure of safety. They weren't just workers anymore, they were Schindler's Jews. Schindler took enormous personal risks, diverting money from his business to pay off Nazi guards and officials. Each time a worker was saved from deportation, it was a small victory. But the Nazis didn't make it easy. At any moment, the Gestapo could come and shut down the operation. Schindler knew this and continued fighting, using every ounce of his influence and wealth to shield his workers from the horrors of the Holocaust. The list of Jewish workers under Schindler's protection grew, eventually reaching over 1,200 men, women, and children. Each name represented a life saved, a family spared from the gas chambers. But as the war drew to a close, Schindler faced another challenge. His factory was no longer profitable, and he was running out of money. He had spent almost everything he had bribing Nazi officials, and by the end of the war, he was nearly bankrupt. But Schindler never wavered. He was determined to protect his workers until the very end, even if it cost him everything. In 1945, as the Allies began to close in on Nazi Germany, Schindler gathered his workers and told them the war was over. They were free. His actions had saved over 1,200 Jewish lives, people who would go on to rebuild their lives after the war. Schindler's Jews, as they called themselves, owed their survival to this one man who chose humanity over profit. But Schindler's story didn't have a fairy tale ending. After the war, he struggled financially, living off donations from the people he had saved. He never regained his wealth, but he didn't regret a single thing. Oskar Schindler's story is one of incredible courage and compassion. He wasn't a perfect man. He had flaws like everyone else. But when it mattered most, Schindler stepped up and risked everything to save others. His actions during the Holocaust remind us that even in the darkest times, one person can make an enormous difference. Schindler's legacy lives on today, not just through the people he saved, but through their children and grandchildren, whose very existence is a testament to the power of one man's courage. In the end, Oskar Schindler didn't just save lives, he saved generations. His story continues to inspire people around the world, showing that even in the face of evil, humanity and kindness can prevail.